The phone rang at 2:17 in the morning, and Bruno Mars knew something was wrong before he even touched it. He had been sitting alone in the back of a darkened rehearsal studio, his guitar resting against his knee, the faint smell of sweat, dust, and warm electrical equipment hanging in the stale air, when the screen suddenly illuminated the room with one name: MOM. He stared at it for 3 seconds, then 4, watching the call disappear before he could answer. A strange pressure tightened beneath his ribs. His mother never called that late. Never. Not unless something had happened. Bruno immediately called back. No answer. He tried again. Still nothing. His fingers trembled as he stood, knocking his guitar against the chair beside him. "Come on, Mom," he whispered. "Pick up." The studio remained silent except for the low hum of the air conditioner and the distant traffic outside. Then his phone vibrated. Not a call. A message. Bruno opened it, expecting perhaps a simple sentence telling him she had called by mistake. Instead, he saw 12 words that would split his life into a before and an after. "Don't come tomorrow. I need you to remember me tonight." He stopped breathing. For several seconds, the message seemed to float on the screen like something written by a stranger. Bruno read it again. Then again. His eyes moved over every word, searching for a hidden joke, a typo, anything that could make it less frightening. There was nothing. "Mom," he whispered. His thumb hovered over the keyboard. He typed, "What happened?" Deleted it. Typed, "Are you okay?" Deleted that too. Finally, he wrote, "I'm coming." The reply arrived almost instantly. "No, please, just listen to me." Bruno felt cold despite the heat inside the studio. At 27, he had already learned how quickly life could change. He had learned that applause could disappear as quickly as it arrived, that success could fill a room while leaving a person completely alone, and that people who smiled at him on stage rarely knew what happened after the lights went out. But he had never learned how to hear fear in his mother's words. She had always been the person who made fear disappear. He called again. This time, she answered. Bruno. Her voice was soft. Too soft. "Mom, what's going on?" There was a long pause. Somewhere on her end, he heard a faint clock ticking. "Where are you?" she asked. "At the studio." "Are you alone?" Bruno looked toward the empty hallway. "Yes." Another silence. Then she breathed slowly. "Good. Why are you talking like this?" His voice cracked. "Did something happen?" "Nothing happened tonight." "That's not an answer." She gave a tiny laugh, but there was no happiness in it. "You always were impatient." Bruno closed his eyes. That sentence transported him backward through years of memories. He could almost see her standing in the kitchen, hair tied loosely behind her head, humming while preparing food. He could hear her calling his childhood name from another room. He could smell garlic frying in oil, hear dishes clattering, feel the warmth of a home that had once seemed permanent. "Mom," he said, quieter now. "Please tell me what's happening. I wanted to hear your voice." Bruno swallowed. "You hear my voice all the time." "Not enough." The words struck him harder than they should have. He leaned against the piano. "I can come home." "No, why?" "Because if you come tonight, you'll see me differently." Bruno's eyes filled with tears. "What does that mean?" "It means I want you to remember me laughing." "Mom, promise me." "I'm not promising anything." "Bruno." Her voice suddenly became firmer. It was the voice she had used when he was a child and had tried to hide something from her. He hated that voice because it always meant she already knew the truth. "Promise me you'll remember me laughing." Bruno pressed his palm against his forehead. "I don't understand." "You don't have to understand tonight." "Then tell me tomorrow." Silence. A silence so long that Bruno wondered whether the call had disconnected. "Mom, tomorrow," she finally whispered, "might be different." The line went dead. Bruno stared at the phone. Then he called back. No answer. Again. Nothing. He grabbed his jacket and rushed toward the exit. The security guard at the front desk looked up in surprise. "Everything okay?" Bruno didn't answer. He stepped into the parking lot, where the night air struck his face like cold water. Los Angeles stretched around him in scattered lights, headlights, distant sirens, neon signs, and endless roads. He got into his car, started the engine, and immediately pulled away. He knew his mother had told him not to come. He knew she had asked him to stay away. But there was one thing she had never taught him: how to obey when his heart was screaming that someone he loved was in danger. The drive felt endless. Every red light seemed deliberately cruel. Every second on the clock felt like something being stolen from him. He kept replaying the message in his mind. Don't come tomorrow. I need you to remember me tonight. Why tonight? Why tomorrow? Why had she called him at 2:17 in the morning? Bruno gripped the steering wheel so tightly that his knuckles turned pale. He tried to call again. Nothing. Then his phone buzzed. A new message. This one contained only 3 words. Look in your room. Bruno frowned. His childhood room had been almost untouched for years. He still kept boxes there, old notebooks, photographs, a broken keyboard, childhood drawings, and things his mother refused to throw away. He accelerated. When he finally arrived, the house looked completely normal from outside. A porch light glowed softly. The curtains were closed. There was no ambulance, no police car, no neighbor standing outside. Bruno stopped breathing for a moment. Maybe he had misunderstood everything. Maybe she was okay. Maybe this was simply a strange emotional conversation brought on by exhaustion. He rushed inside. Mom. No answer. The house smelled exactly as he remembered. Coffee, wood, laundry detergent, and the faint perfume she always wore. He moved through the hallway. Mom. Still nothing. His heart pounded harder as he reached the stairs. He entered his old bedroom and switched on the light. Everything was almost exactly where he remembered it. A dusty keyboard sat against the wall. A stack of old magazines leaned beside the closet. Childhood photographs covered one corner of the desk. Then he noticed something he had never seen before. An envelope sat in the middle of the bed. His name was written across it in his mother's handwriting. Bruno. He approached slowly. His fingers shook as he picked it up. There was no stamp, no address, nothing except his name. He opened it. Inside was a photograph. It showed Bruno as a child, sitting beside his mother, both of them laughing at something outside the frame. On the back she had written, "Before the world knew you, you were already everything to me." Bruno's eyes burned. He turned the photograph over again and found another note beneath it. "There are things I never told you because I wanted you to become strong before you learned how fragile I was." His breath caught. "What are you doing, Mom?" he whispered. The house remained silent. Then he heard a sound downstairs. A cupboard door closing. Bruno froze. Someone was in the house. He quietly stepped into the hallway. "Mom." No response. He descended the stairs slowly, each wooden step creaking beneath his weight. His pulse hammered in his ears. He reached the kitchen and stopped. His mother stood with her back toward him. She was wearing a pale sweater and holding a cup with both hands. She looked smaller than he remembered. Older. Tired. But alive. Bruno almost collapsed with relief. "Mom." She turned. For 1 second, neither of them moved. Then she smiled. It was the same smile from the photograph. The smile she had promised him. "You came." Bruno's eyes filled instantly. "Of course I came." She shook her head gently. "I told you not to. You sent me a message that sounded like a goodbye." She looked down at her cup. Maybe it was. Bruno stepped closer. "Don't say that. Sit." "Mom, please." Something in her voice stopped him. He sat across from her. She placed the cup on the table. Her hands were trembling. Bruno noticed. He had never noticed before. Or perhaps he had noticed and refused to see. "Are you sick?" he asked. She looked toward the window. "Everyone gets sick eventually." "That's not what I asked." She closed her eyes. "Yes." The single word emptied the room of air. Bruno stared at her. "How sick?" She didn't answer. "Mom, how sick?" "Sick enough that I wanted to night with you." Bruno stood so abruptly that the chair scraped against the floor. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you were working." "I don't care about work." "You do." "Not more than you." His voice echoed through the kitchen. His mother looked at him, and for the first time he saw tears in her eyes. Bruno immediately lowered his voice. "Why didn't you tell me?" She reached across the table and took his hand. Her fingers were warm but weak. "Because every time I saw you succeeding, I thought, let him have this. Let my son enjoy the life he fought for. Let him laugh without carrying my fear." Bruno shook his head. "You don't get to decide what I can carry." "I know." "Then why did you?" She smiled sadly. "Because I'm your mother." He looked away. "That's not fair." "No," she squeezed his hand. "It isn't." The clock on the wall ticked. Outside, a car passed slowly, its headlights sliding across the kitchen ceiling. Bruno sat back down. "Tell me everything." His mother looked at him for a long time. "Not everything can be fixed by knowing it." "Maybe not. But I need the truth." She nodded. Then she stood and walked toward a cabinet. From the bottom drawer, she pulled out a small wooden box. She placed it on the table. Bruno recognized it immediately. It had belonged to his father. What is this? Bruno stared at his mother as if the woman sitting across from him had suddenly become a stranger, the rain hammering against the windows while the old kitchen clock continued its merciless ticking. Who? He asked. His voice was barely audible. His mother looked toward the hallway. I don't know his name. You just said someone has been watching me for years. I know. Then how can you not know his name? She stood slowly, gripping the edge of the table. Because your father never told me. Bruno felt anger rising beneath the fear. You knew something happened the night he died, and you let me believe a lie for 27 years. His mother flinched. I thought I was protecting you. From what? From the truth. Bruno laughed bitterly. That's what everyone says when they don't want to tell you something. His mother looked down at her hands. Your father was supposed to come home that night. Bruno stopped. Supposed to? She nodded. He called me shortly before midnight. He said someone had been following him. Bruno's expression hardened. Who? He didn't know. What did he say? He said if anything happened to him, I should take you and leave. But you didn't. Because I thought he was frightened. I thought it was nothing. She swallowed. Then the call ended. Bruno felt his stomach tighten. And then, 20 minutes later, someone knocked on the door. Who? A man. What man? I don't know. What did he look like? His mother closed her eyes, struggling to remember. Dark coat. Black gloves. He never stepped fully into the light. Bruno felt a chill move across his shoulders. What did he say? He said your father had made a mistake. Bruno's breathing became shallow. What mistake? I don't know. Mom. I swear. Her voice cracked. I never knew. Bruno turned away, pacing toward the window. His reflection stared back at him, pale and exhausted. Then what happened to Dad? His mother didn't answer immediately. When she finally spoke, her voice sounded hollow. They found his car on a road outside the city. Bruno remembered the official story. A terrible accident. A wet road. Loss of control. A tragedy nobody could prevent. He had been a child when his mother told him. He remembered the funeral flowers. The black clothing. The adults whispering. The strange sensation of not understanding why everyone was crying. He remembered holding his mother's hand so tightly that his fingers hurt. He remembered asking when his father would come home. And he remembered her saying, He won't, sweetheart. For years, that sentence had been the deepest wound inside him. Now it was becoming something else. A lie. Did you see the car? He asked. His mother shook her head. No, Bruno turned sharply. Why not? Because your father had already been taken away. Taken away? By the time I arrived, the police were there. Then why did you tell me it was an accident? Because that's what the police told me. And you believed them? She looked at him. I wanted to. Bruno fell silent. His phone remained on the table, the unknown messages glowing like an accusation. Another vibration broke the silence. Bruno picked it up. This time there was an image. He opened it. His heart stopped. It was an old photograph of his father standing beside a man Bruno had never seen before. The photograph had been taken outside a building. In the corner, barely visible, was a date. The night before his father's death. Where did you get this? Bruno whispered. Another message appeared. Ask her about the blue room. Bruno looked at his mother. Her face went completely white. What is the blue room? He asked. She didn't move. Mom. Her eyes lifted slowly. Who sent that message? Answer me. Bruno, what is the blue room? She looked toward the hallway. There was a room in your father's office. What room? A hidden room. Bruno's heart began pounding. You told me Dad didn't have a private office. I lied about that too. Why? Because after he died, I sealed it. Why? She hesitated. Because that room contained everything he was afraid someone would find. Bruno stepped closer. What was inside? Documents. About what? Money. Contracts. Names. Whose names? She looked directly into his eyes. People who were never supposed to be connected to him. Bruno's mind raced. His father had always been described as a hard-working man, a loving father, someone who had wanted a quiet life for his family. Suddenly, that image seemed incomplete. Did Dad do something illegal? Bruno asked. His mother shook her head. No, then why was he afraid? Because he discovered something. What? I never found out. Bruno stared at her. But you know where the room is. Yes. Take me there. No, Mom. No. You said keeping secrets only makes the truth heavier. She looked wounded. I said that before I realized what this truth could cost you. Bruno stepped closer. It already cost me, Dad. She closed her eyes. And I refuse to lose you too. He reached for her hand. Then don't. For several seconds, she remained still. Then she whispered, "Follow me." They left the kitchen and walked through the dark hallway. The house seemed different now. Every familiar photograph felt like evidence. Every closed door seemed to hide another secret. His mother stopped beside an old bookshelf. She reached behind it and pressed a small wooden panel. There was a faint click. Bruno stared as part of the wall shifted inward. A narrow staircase appeared behind it. "You've got to be kidding me," he whispered. His mother looked at him. "Your father built this before you were born." Bruno turned on his phone flashlight. Why would a man need a secret room inside his house? Because he believed someone was searching for him. They descended. The air grew colder with every step. Dust floated through the beam of light. At the bottom was a steel door. His mother removed a small key from around her neck. Bruno hadn't noticed the chain before. She inserted it into the lock. The mechanism clicked. The door opened with a low metallic groan. Inside, the room was exactly as it had been decades ago. Shelves covered the walls. Old files were stacked in careful rows. A desk stood beneath a deadlight fixture. There was a blue lamp in the corner. Bruno understood immediately. The blue room. His mother nodded. Yes. He walked slowly toward the desk. Dust covered everything except one object. A black leather notebook sat perfectly clean in the center. Bruno touched it. "Someone has been here." His mother looked frightened. "What? Look." Bruno pointed at the dust. There were fingerprints across the desk. Fresh ones. His mother stepped backward. "We need to leave." "Not yet." Bruno opened the notebook. The first pages were filled with handwriting. Names, dates, locations, payments, meetings. Some names were crossed out. Others were circled. Then Bruno saw one name that made his blood run cold. His mother's. Beneath it was a date from 27 years earlier. He looked at her. "Why is your name here?" She didn't answer. "Mom, I don't know." "You're lying again." "I'm not." Bruno turned the page. There was a sentence written in his father's handwriting. If she ever tells Bruno the truth, he will become their next target. Bruno stopped reading. His mother covered her mouth. "Oh God. Who are they?" he asked. She shook her head. "I don't know." "Then why did Dad write this?" "Because he was trying to protect us." Bruno flipped through the notebook faster. He found another entry. "The boy must never know about the recording." He froze. "What recording?" His mother stepped toward him. Bruno closed the book. "What recording? Please. What recording?" His voice echoed through the hidden room. She finally broke. "Your father recorded a conversation the night before he died." Bruno stared at her. "Where is it?" "I don't know." "You know something." "I know he hid it." "Where?" "He told me that if he disappeared, I should never look for it." "Why?" "Because whoever heard that recording would know what he knew." Bruno's phone vibrated again. He looked down. A new message appeared. "You're getting close." He stared at the screen. Then another message arrived. "Look beneath the blue lamp." Bruno slowly raised his eyes toward the corner of the room. His mother whispered, "Don't." Bruno walked toward it. "Bruno, don't touch it." He reached beneath the lamp and felt something taped underneath the wooden table. His fingers found a small rectangular object. He pulled it free. An old cassette recorder. His mother's face collapsed. "That's it." Bruno stared at the recorder. "Dad's recording?" She nodded. His hands shook as he pressed the play button. Static filled the room. Then his father's voice emerged from the darkness. "If you're hearing this, something has happened to me." Bruno closed his eyes. His father's voice sounded exactly as he remembered. Warm, calm, alive. His mother began crying silently. The recording continued. "I need you to understand that I never wanted my family involved. I made one mistake. I trusted the wrong person." Static interrupted the sentence. Then a second voice appeared. A voice Bruno didn't recognize. "You should have left this alone." His father's voice responded. "It's too late." Bruno leaned closer. The unknown man said, "You don't understand what you're risking." "I understand exactly what I'm risking." "Your wife." Silence. "Your son." Bruno's breath caught. The recording continued. "If you keep talking, neither of them will be safe." Then came a sound like a chair scraping across the floor. His father's voice became quieter. "If anything happens to me, they will come for my family." The recording suddenly stopped. Bruno stared at the machine. "That's it." His mother shook her head. "There was more." "What happened to it?" "I don't know." Bruno looked down at the cassette. Something felt wrong. He turned it over. A tiny strip of paper had been taped to the back. He peeled it away. Written on it were 4 words. "He never died alone." Bruno's mother gasped. Bruno.
The door opened another inch and Bruno could see only the outline of a man standing beyond it, his face hidden beneath the darkness of the passage, while his mother gripped Bruno's wrist so tightly that her fingers trembled. "Who are you?" Bruno demanded. The stranger did not answer immediately. Instead, he stepped into the blue room and slowly closed the hidden door behind him. He was older than Bruno expected, perhaps in his 60s, wearing a rain-soaked black coat and carrying a small leather case in one hand. Water dripped from the edge of his sleeve onto the dusty floor. "You have your father's eyes," the man finally said. Bruno felt anger rise instantly. "Everyone keeps saying that. Your father used to say you had his eyes but your mother's heart." Bruno stepped between the stranger and his mother. "You knew him?" "Yes. Who are you?" The man looked at Bruno for a long moment. "My name is Daniel." "Daniel what?" "Daniel Reyes." Bruno's mother closed her eyes. "I thought you were dead." Daniel gave a tired smile. "So did everyone else." Bruno's stomach tightened. "You were there that night." Daniel's expression changed. "Yes. You were with my father." "Yes." "Then tell me what happened." Daniel looked toward the cassette recorder. "First, you need to understand something. Your father was not a criminal." Bruno said nothing. He discovered that a group of people had been using legitimate businesses to move money through accounts that were never supposed to be connected. Your father found evidence by accident. First, he thought it was simply financial fraud. Then he discovered something much worse. "What?" Bruno asked. Daniel looked at his mother. People were being threatened into silence. Bruno's jaw tightened. "My father was one of them?" He refused to stay silent. His mother whispered. "I begged him to stop." Daniel nodded. "And I begged him too." Bruno looked between them. "Then why did he keep going?" Daniel answered softly. "Because one of the people involved had threatened your family." Bruno felt his throat tighten. "Who?" Daniel opened the leather case. Inside was a stack of old photographs, several documents, and another cassette. Your father discovered that someone close to the investigation had been leaking information. Bruno stared at the cassette. "Who?" Daniel looked at him. "Me." Silence filled the room. Bruno's mother covered her mouth. "No," she whispered. "I didn't know," Daniel said quickly. "I was being followed. They took my daughter. They told me that if I cooperated, she would live." Bruno stared at him. "And did she?" Daniel looked down. "For a while." His voice broke. "Then they killed her anyway." The room became unbearably quiet. Bruno suddenly understood the exhaustion in the man's eyes. Daniel wasn't simply carrying an old secret. He had been carrying a grave inside himself for decades. "My father knew?" Bruno asked. "Yes." "And he still trusted you?" "He did." Daniel looked toward the cassette. "That was his greatest mistake." Bruno reached for the recorder. "What is on this one?" Daniel hesitated. "The rest of the conversation." Bruno pressed the play button. Static filled the room again. Then his father's voice emerged. "Daniel, you have to understand. If they know what I've discovered, they'll come after Bruno." Daniel's recorded voice answered. "Then disappear." "I can't." "Why?" "Because disappearing would confirm everything." A pause. Then his father's voice became quieter. "I have already sent copies of the evidence to someone outside the organization." Daniel asked, "Who?" Bruno leaned closer. His father's answer came through the static. "My wife." Bruno looked at his mother. Her face went pale. The recording continued. "She doesn't know she has it." Daniel's voice sounded confused. "Where?" "In the only place they would never search." The recording stopped for several seconds. Then a crash could be heard. His father's voice shouted, "Run!" The recording became chaotic. Footsteps. A door slamming. Someone shouting. Then silence. Bruno stared at the machine. "That's it." Daniel nodded. "That's all I recovered." "Recovered?" "I found the recorder in the car." Bruno's eyes narrowed. "Then my father didn't die in the accident." Daniel shook his head. No, Bruno felt as if the floor had shifted beneath him. "What happened?" Daniel looked at his mother. "Your father was alive when I last saw him." His mother began crying. Where? Bruno demanded. At the old warehouse. And then? He told me to leave. Why? Because he knew they were coming. Daniel swallowed. I left. 10 minutes later, the building caught fire. Bruno stared at him. You left him. He ordered me to. You left him. Bruno's voice exploded through the room. His mother grabbed his arm. Bruno. He left my father. Daniel didn't defend himself. Yes. Bruno pushed him against the wall. You watched him die? No, Daniel's voice cracked. I watched the building burn. Bruno's hands trembled. Then how do you know he died? Daniel looked directly into his eyes. I don't. Bruno froze. The words seemed impossible. What did you say? I said I don't know if your father died that night. His mother stared at him in horror. Daniel, stop. You deserve to know. No, she cried. You don't understand what you're doing. Daniel turned toward her. He deserves the truth. Bruno looked at his mother. Mom. She could barely breathe. Your father disappeared. Bruno felt his entire body go numb. You knew. I waited for him. Tears ran down her cheeks. For months. Then years. Eventually, someone came to me and told me they had found his body. Did they show you? No. Then why did you believe them? Because they threatened you. Bruno's anger disappeared for a moment, replaced by something heavier. What did they threaten to do? His mother looked at him with the same expression she had worn when he was a child, asking why his father wasn't coming home. They said if I ever searched for him, they would take you away from me. Bruno closed his eyes. Suddenly the strange details of his childhood returned. His mother checking the locks twice before bed, never answering unknown numbers, changing addresses, refusing to discuss his father, becoming frightened whenever strangers asked questions. He had thought she was grieving. He hadn't realized she was surviving. Why didn't you tell me? He whispered. Because I wanted you to grow up without looking over your shoulder. She touched his face. I wanted you to have music instead of fear. Bruno's eyes filled with tears. You gave me both. She smiled sadly. I know. Daniel placed the leather case on the table. There is one more thing. Bruno looked at him. Daniel removed an old photograph. It showed Bruno's father standing beside a young Bruno outside their home. On the back was a handwritten sentence. If I don't return, tell my son I heard him sing before I left. Bruno stared at the photograph. He heard me. His mother nodded. You were 4. Bruno laughed through tears. I barely remember singing. Your father remembered. She reached into the wooden box and pulled out another object. A tiny cassette. He left this for you. Bruno looked at it. Why didn't you give it to me? Because I was afraid. Of what? Of what you would hear. Bruno took the cassette with shaking hands. Daniel found an old player on the shelf. Bruno inserted the tape. Static. Then a man's voice. His father's voice. Hey, little man. Bruno's breath stopped. He hadn't heard those words in 27 years. His knees weakened. His mother covered her face. The recording continued. If you're listening to this, you're probably older than I imagined. Maybe you're a musician. Maybe you became something completely different. Whatever you became, I hope you never believe you have to prove your worth to anyone. Bruno began crying silently. Your mother will tell you I'm proud of you. Believe her. She never lies when it comes to love. His mother broke down. Bruno pressed his fist against his mouth. There is something I need you to know. I may not be there to see the man you become, but I already know the kind of man you will be. You will love deeply. You will carry more than you should. And sometimes you will be afraid that losing people means you should stop loving them. Don't make that mistake. Bruno's shoulders shook. If you ever feel alone, play music. Not for the crowd. Not for success. Play because somewhere inside you, there is still that little boy who wants his father to hear him. The recording ended with a soft click. Bruno stood completely still. No one spoke. Then he turned toward his mother and pulled her into his arms. She cried against his chest. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. Bruno held her tighter. You don't have to apologize for loving me. I lied to you. You were scared. I should have told you. Maybe. He kissed her forehead.